Hello, welcome back. This is Charlie. All right, I'm circling back with you on the front of our album. This is where I decided to add my two brass butterflies. I thought that after moving them around a little bit, this is where I liked them the best. Made no other changes. So now what we're going to work on is this signature in here. But first off, from your scraps, and it'll be cuttings from this back piece here, I cut 3/8 of an inch, 1/2 an inch strips all the way through to cover this section of the page. And the reason being, when I go to put a page on here, I want to be somewhere about here. I don't want to encroach in here because as I do build-ups, which can be 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch, I need that space for this page to turn and lay over. If I bring it all the way here, then that extra height, that elevation is going to turn here, and then the page is going to actually end up laying over like this. It's not going to lay over straight. It's going to have an arch to it. So I always allow myself some room here, and then when I cut my base piece, it'll cut to fit this section of the page. Now the panels will be a little bit larger than the pages, so I'll give you the information on what to do here when we get there. So this is what I have set up so far. Now I'll give you some of these measurements here in a minute, but this is the piece that I selected for my base. The reverse side of it had a teacup up here and a plate and some silverware down here. But I really love this side, so this was the side that I picked. This base piece measures at 8.5 inches across. And then it measures at 8 7/8 in the height. So if I bring the album back, I'm going to double check my measurements to make sure that I didn't make this too big. So this is going to come within about 1/8 of an inch here of this edge, and you can see I'm already starting to cover my expansion piece. I'm not quite sure whatever to call this. So as I build up, this is probably going to get covered up a little bit more because that growth, that paper growth, if you will, needs a place to go. When you start adding gussets and hinges, you're building this up right here, but you're also building it out because those paper layers thicken as you go out. So that's why I try to be careful with how far I'm coming to this hinge. All right, enough with that. So again, 8.5 across by 8 7/8 in your height. The piece, let me give you this first. This pocket, not including my die, is 2 3/4 of an inch deep, and it obviously is 8 7/8 because it's got to cover the height of this. Now this decorative die that I'm using is actually this die right here, and the die extends, but I always cover up these last 2 rows of dots. But it is from the Pink Fresh, one word, Pink Fresh Studio LLC crafting dies, and it's their Essential Slim Cuts. I think that's what that word says. But this is the die I'm using. I don't know their availability, so I'm going to trust that you're going to go out to Google and try to find it. I'm not going to provide a link because if they run out of stock, then the link is invalid. So I'll let you try to find it. All right, so this is going to go on like this. And then in order for me to give you this cut here, I need to go to this piece here. Has the pink on, I think is that right? No. Oh, I know where that came from. Never mind. Where did that come from? Oh, this came out of my scraps. This came out of my scraps. This is from the back of the, it is, I do believe is the back of this piece right here, because it's the only piece that I don't have. So I'm sorry, I'm kind of stuttering here for you, but I do believe this came from scraps, and it's going to be that front piece. It is, because here's the wings to the butterflies. So this piece here is out of the scraps, and it was considerably larger. It was about another probably 3/4 of an inch larger. I trimmed up this because what I was focusing on were these flower here, and then I trimmed this down and this, and so I ended up so it would fit this, so it would cut to fit. All right, and then out of the A4 papers, there's a lot of stuff we're going to be using that we're going to be cutting out of that, because this collection doesn't have ephemera, so we're going to be using A4 quite a bit. But here is this element. It looks like it's a sugar cup with spoon, and it's going to lay right down here, and it's going to act as a tuck. So I'm only going to tape this bottom piece, so if you want to tuck something small in here, you can. And then over here on this side, we're going to have a flap, a small intricate little item here that we're going to turn over. This measures, get my ruler going the right way. This measures right at 5 inches, but you've got a 1/2 inch score so that this can fold over. Now, the two pieces that I'm using to cover this, one of them says tea menu, and the other one is a teacup. Now, I'm not focusing on this piece because this is going to be for a photo, so I have turned it over, and that's what's going to go on the back side. It's just going to open up like so. And tea menu is going to go on the front. Now on this back side, I cut out one of the set, there's some stamps, 3 stamps, and I took the one that says fine teas, and it's going to go, what did I do? It's going to go this way. I put tape on this corner and here, so I have to make sure I'm putting it in the right corner. But this is going to be a tuck, and you can still put a photo right here. So let's go ahead and let's get this assembly put together, and then we'll go to the next steps. And again, this was 2 3/4 of an inch by 8 7/8. And then this came from scraps. It's from the cutting of the front paper off of the album front. And I go to my scraps quite a bit. I'll find elements in there to make these large pockets so that they don't go to waste. Scraps like this aren't big enough to do, a sizable photo mat, like a 3.5 by 5. So they make great cuttings for big tucks. And this one I think is just so elegant. It's just beautiful. And then coupled with this paper right here, it really stands out. Now I'm going to take my tape off, and I'm just going to set my pencil. Why did I say pencil? Where'd pencil come from? This is my spoon and my cup of sugar. All right, so then this piece here, we're going to just simply, as best as we can, balance this top to bottom, and then we're going to commit it to the paper. And then I'm going to glue this on the front T menu. I will say that this die set from Pink Fresh Studios, the dies in that package are probably my most go-to dies that I use when I'm making albums. I'll look at them and see what works with the paper collection. And the reason I cover up those last two holes is then this is extending way out here, and it, to me, makes the floral that much weaker when you're using them as behind tucks like I'm doing here. So I don't want another 1/4 of an inch hanging out there just to show off 3 holes. So I always cover them up. All right, so now we're going to take the tape off of our element here, and we're just going to slide it right across the bottom, and we're going to right in front of our hinge, so then it can turn, this can turn over quite nicely. All right, so that's what we have so far. Okay, let's talk about this. This page is going to come over quite a ways, and then we're going to have a band that's going to come across here. It's going to be magnetized to keep this close. So let's work on getting you the measurements to this. Obviously, this is going to be 8 7/8 in the height, and it is going to measure at 8.5 inches in the overall width. But you're going to have a 1/2 inch score, and you're going to have an 1/8 of an, you're going to come out here 5/8. So this is going to be an 1/8 of an inch hinge right here that we're creating, or gusset, whichever you want to call it. So 1/2 inch and then 5/8 of an inch. And we're putting it on the left side, and you'll snuggle up to the 1/2 inch as best as you can, keeping in mind that there's some bulk that you've already built in here with this piece. So you'll want to make sure that you can get in there just as tight as you can. And then when you go to fold this over, you will notice a little bit of what I refer to as pushback, because it's trying to get up and over that 1/2 inch piece of paper that we've already built down there underneath of it. So now I'm going to push back on this, and I'm going to reinforce that additional score line, so that when I'm done, I've got a nice hinge right here that's an 1/8 of an inch. Now this is going to be the band to cover it, and this little guy here measures 3.5 inches by 2 inches. You have a 1/2 inch score, and then you have a 3/4 inch score. And then we're going to center this. I want this 3/4 inch score on the top, so that means we're going to butt this paper right up to the 1/2 inch score line, so that once this is on here, then it's going to place this hinge that we've created up on top. And you can see as I fold this over, it's up on top so that it can handle any of the additional documents or photos that you're going to be putting on the inside. Now I need to mark my center, because I don't want this to be too far off. So let's get it upside down. So at 8 7/8, I'm going to be at roughly about 4 3/8 will be my center. So I'm just going to put that right there. So then this is going to center right here. And I'm doing this with tape so that if I have to adjust this, I can. I'll use an adhesive removal product. All right. Okay. Very good. Now I'm going to set my magnets. Now when I do this, I want to make sure that this is standing up straight, that it's not pushed forward. I want it up straight, and then I will smash it down. And then, so I guarantee that they're not going to move about. I'm going to put a little bit of tape on them. All right, so let's go back to the inside of this. On the inside, there is a piece of paper. I just think this thing is so beautiful. And I cut and I trimmed to this, and then I turned it over and I went, oh my gosh, so that's what I'm using. I'm using this side of it. And then from the back side, because I love this piece so much, I've made another pocket, a big tucking pocket that will go right there. And then from the cut-aparts in the A4, I found this just gorgeous typewriter. I love it. And then just above the typewriter were these cute little butterflies, and so I'm going to put those little butterflies on here. Down here in this corner, I took the word T. It's out of the A4. All these little things are out of the A4. And it's going to go down here as a tuck. So you have a pocket and then you have a tuck. All right. So let's go ahead. I'll give you the measurements for that in a second. I want to get this on, but because it's so large, I am going to use I was second guessing something I did. Okay, I'm going to use tape because by the time I get the glue on, it's going to almost be dry at the beginning. So I'm going to tape this piece on. And then so to prevent it from popping, I'm going to put a piece of tape right there. All right, so let's go ahead. I'll take this off so that I can stabilize the paper where I need it. And then I'll take the rest of it off. Now be careful when you're laying your paper that you do not cover this hinge right here. This, remember you did an 1/8 of an inch hinge here where you went 1/2 an inch and 5/8 of an inch. Do not lay this paper on this score line, because if you do, you are in trouble because it will interfere with the page actually folding over. Oh, that tore off weird. That paper on the back of the tape was actually separating. Okay, so this little pocket right here is going to measure at 2 1/4 inches by your 8 7/8. And I apologize, I should have had tape on this. Okay, so let's take everything off. And then I'm going to be real careful about lining up next to that score line. And then I've got some tape, excess tape here over the edge, so I'm going to use my finger to push it down. And then we'll glue on this piece. I just love this design right here. All right. So I backed this on some cardstock so that it would stand out against the pink and give it a little bit of stability. Now I want to see, so it's going to go side to side. And we're going to give it a center, roughly. And then my intention here is just to glue just the body of the butterfly. Now let me see. I think I'll just put it up there. Okay, and then down here, the little tag for the T, I just ran tape across the bottom. And I'm just going to tuck it right down here in the corner, but I'm going to come in just a little bit. I don't want to go all the way to the edge on this one. All right, let's go back to, from your scraps, you should have a piece like this, long, like this. And it's going to come from the cut for the front page. So let's move along to that so you'll understand where they came from. I am cutting this piece here for the front. So along the edge and across the top were some trimmings, and this was one of the ones that was trimmed off of the side, I do believe. It came up from maybe the bottom. So I'm using this piece, the floral end, to go here. And then I'm using off that same strip, I've cut the piece that's going to fit under here. So I'm going to go ahead and put these on because you know where to get them. And because it's just the magnetic closure, you can add these at any time. Once you get this piece cut, you'll have these to put on. I'm going to turn this over and then burnish. All right, so on this piece, you can see that I cut the door off, which is on this side. I wanted to leave the cat. So I sacrificed the door and a little bit of the chair for this image. And I trimmed off the floral that was over here, and I trimmed off a little bit off the top. Then I came in, these two photos that were, or framed pictures, I cut them out, mounted them on cardstock, and then I'm using some pop-ups so there's a little bit of elevation. So when this all comes together and this is closed, then you've got the floral accent right here. So what I'm going to do now, once I cut these out, I did ink in here and I've inked around. And by the way, I'm using, if you want to ink, I'm using the Distress Ink Gathered Twigs. Now you can use any color of ink you want, or don't ink at all. That's entirely your choice. I like to ink because I get rid of the white edges in the paper once you've cut them, and it adds a pop of color, if you will, that helps to allow the paper itself to stand out. Okay, well, it's down there, so I'm not going to pick it up. All right, now I'm just going to take off the backing on the foam pop-ups. Then I'm just going to put it right back in where I pulled it out of, and it just gives a little bit of elevation to the front of this signature. Okay, all right, closes, got a nice floral accent. You open this up, we've got a nice tuck here, we've got a tuck down here, you've got a spot for a photo, or you can use the tuck, and then you've got another big pocket tuck here. All right, so let's turn it over and let's get some tape on the back side, and we'll get it put in our album. I gotta get the big tape out. And here's a perfect example of where I built up. See how this came out of here, right there? That's going to eat up some of that hinge space on my album. So when we open this up, this is going to lay in here just like this, just about 1/8 of an inch off this edge right here. And you can see how this is actually, compared to here and here, it's actually almost covering up my safety net, if you will. But knowing that you're going to be putting some items in here, I wanted to make sure that this would flex up and down. All right, so let's go ahead and burnish, because I didn't do that yet. Take oh, come on, there we And this one, because it's always the hardest to get off. Yeah, I'm going to turn mine this way a little bit so that I can see 3 of the 4 sides for putting this in the album. Making sure it's all nice and level, and then I'll commit. Let's burnish what we have already. Now if you use a glue as your medium for attaching, that's fine. That's entirely up to you. I'm going to take advantage of the flexibility and pull these tapes off of here. Now, this particular strip that I'm taking off right now, make sure you can see what I'm doing, is on the hinge end of this signature. And I want to make sure that this hinge stays standing up straight and that it's not collapsing, you know, flattening out. So I'm just being very careful when I lay down the tape on that. And now we're going to go ahead and give it a good old burnish. Okay. There we have it. Hey, it was great having you along. So until next time, we'll be back to do this one. Bye-bye.